Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
They'll test maybe 100 new styles in a week and we'll go 100 to 150 units deep on a particular style. If it hits their success metrics, they will buy back into that product and, get it here as fast as we can.
a.k.a. brands have seen incredible success bringing their digitally native brands to the physical marketplace. And a big part of that success comes from their test and repeat retail strategy that allows them to gauge and adapt to consumer trends extremely fast.
It's a model that I would say from an organization perspective takes time to build. But look, it's a model that when you get it working, it is just extremely powerful.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. Today, we're chatting with Ciaran Long. Ciaran has been serving as CEO of a.k.a. Brands for more than 2 years. He served previously as CFO of samsclub.com and held other leadership positions within Walmart's e-commerce division, as well as at CBS, CNET Networks, and KPMG. He's a strategic leader with 25 years of experience managing high-performance, cross-functional teams driving organizational growth and change. Let's enter the arena with Ciaran Long. For those that don't know, tell us about a.k.a. Brands. How would you describe the company? Talk about the brands in the portfolio.
a.k.a. is a group of 4 fashion brands really focused on that next generation consumer. Our 4 key brands are Princess Polly, which is a brand focused on that 18 to 25-year-old female consumer, slightly upper income, very much focused on being on trend from a fashion perspective, accessible price points, and doing it in a sustainable way. Our next brand on the women's side is Petal & Pup, more focused on that 25 to 40-year-old consumer onto the next stage of life, dressing her for all occasions as she looks to kind of be out and about.
Yep.
And then on the men's side, we've 2 brands. We've got Culture Kings, which is a streetwear brand. And that's a mix of own brands that they have themselves and then third-party brands that they go to market with. And then Minimal is a key brand for us, again, focused on that bit more fashion forward in the streetwear space and again, accessible price point.
And when you look out on the landscape, what really differentiates the company? How are you trying to position yourself?
I would say 3 aspects that very much differentiate us are firstly, our test and repeat from a merchandising perspective. And I think you hear a lot of people talk about data-driven approach to merchandising. I would say we kind of even go further than that. So very much the brands are testing maybe 100 styles each week, but only going 100 units deep in those. And as they see success, buying back in really quickly. If they don't see success of the product, let that run out. And that test and repeat model very much allows you to be on trend from a consumer perspective with that more efficient marketing, less markdowns, and just really being able to talk to your customer. Secondly, from a marketing perspective, we really lean into influencers, but I would say much more smaller influencers that have, their own core following. We don't really deal with mega influencers.
Yep.
And, with that, you get a much more authentic relationship with our consumers, much easier to measure what's going on with those influencers and manage that. And then look, for us from an operating perspective, very much asset light. We use the Shopify ecosystem, and from a distribution centers, we use 3PLs and very much focused on putting our resources behind merchandising, marketing, and talking to our customers.
Yeah. Going back to the little bit of history, I think a.k.a. Brand started in 2018. What was it back then, and how would you describe the evolution of the brand?
Yeah, look, I think we started bringing these brands together in 2018. The brands have been around longer than that. 3 of our brands started in Australia. We were seeing them get some real nice traction in the US. and doing that in a very organic way. So we felt there's an opportunity to bring these brands together, help them scale in the US and really accelerate that growth opportunity for them. All of the brands very much started in this direct consumer first and built great relationships there with their customers. And I think as we've gone through some of the more recent period is I think brands have realized, look, there are other ways that we should be engaging with our consumer, be that stores, be it wholesale. We've now somewhat changed our strategy over the last period and more developed it to be centered around, look, we will be where our customers are.
Yeah, well, let's get down to the brand level. I know one of your brands, Princess Polly, has been expanding the retail footprint across the US, I think has 13 or more stores. Maybe talk about the strategy there. How do you think about expansion over the long term?
Yeah, so Princess Polly, and look, Princess Polly is about half our business, so doing 300 plus from a sales perspective. So nice, healthy size, very profitable brand, really great team there. The founders of the brand continue to be the CEOs of the brand and run that on a day-to-day basis. And, very much seeing a lot of success in the US and over a recent period have now started moving from just being direct to consumer into stores. We opened the first store for them in Century City in the Westfield in September 23. Saw nice success there, learned a lot about how to bring the stores into these direct-to-consumer brands. And like you say, we've now 10 opened, another 4 for the back half of this year. And we'll continue on that kind of trajectory of opening 8 to 10 stores a year. Certainly feel there's a lot of opportunity for the brand. You could certainly see the brand having 100 stores across the US easily. We also see opportunities for them internationally, seeing a lot of demand from Europe and other areas. So I think that brand's really just getting going on their scaling. And we think we're going to do a lot with them over the next couple of years.
And then another one of the brands, Petal and Pup, I know it's in Nordstrom's nationwide on their website, nordstrom.com. Tell us about that brand. How has that been performing? Where is it in its life cycle?
Yeah, so the Petal and Pup brand, focused on that 25 to 40-year-old consumer, like I mentioned, on to the next stage of life with their partner, kids, and dressing them for all their occasions. It has been interesting for us with this brand. I would say they were the first to go after the wholesale opportunity and leaned into Nordstrom. They put some of their product on Nordstrom.com in March of 2024. So very quick success there. With that, Nordstrom asked us to do a test in store with them last September, which we did. And then very quickly, based on that, we went chain wide with them in spring, summer this year. And look, I think just seeing fantastic success there. We did some shop and shops with Nordstrom in kind of May, June.
Yep.
Really good customer response. We're delighted with that relationship. And I think it's also for us, it gives us a great view on the opportunity for Petal and Pup, right?
Yep.
But also what we can do with other brands when you've got that right wholesale partner that has your customer, understands your brand and is willing to partner with you. We're seeing it bring a lot of brand awareness. It's bringing a lot of new customers to our brand. And I think just really creating a lot of runway for us as we look to expand on the opportunity we have.
Yeah. And the one thing I wanted to ask you is I have 3 daughters. They're older now, but in going through their teens and growing up, they're always a little fickle on, their preferences and brands. How do you keep that all together and stay ahead of what some people might call a fickle demographic that you're dealing with?
Look, I think we're very conscious that we do have a somewhat fickle consumer and that we do need to stay ahead of them as best we can, but also journey with them. I think, look, we're very fortunate that we have access to so much data, right? And, all the data from our own transactions we can bring in, analyze ourselves. And the team are constantly looking at what's on trend, what are their customers wearing, talking about who they're doing things with. And for us, that tells us a lot of what's on trend, what's happening out there in the market. And with our short lead times, right, Princess Polly is buying product right now for October.
Yep.
Right. When you're that close in, you get to make much better choices to be on trend. I would say, look, the other thing, Tom, that we're very conscious of is we are not going to let our brands age up with our consumers.
Yep.
Right. When Princess Polly consumer gets onto that next stage of life, we understand that they will leave the brand and go somewhere else. We understand that. That's part of running these brands.
You'll have an amicable separation with your customer at that point.
We will. We will love them and enjoy them and congratulate them as they go on to the next stage of life. And, I think what's interesting when you are then working with influencers, you're also bringing in new influencers that are talking to that younger consumer and that you're kind of connecting with the younger consumer there to bring them in as your future customers. So that's kind of how I would say from a merchandising and a marketing perspective, we're approaching being on point for those consumers.
It seems as though a.k.a. has had success making the jump from direct to consumer to brick and mortar retail, and kudos to them for doing that because it's not an easy transition to make. I wanted to drill down into that test and repeat retail strategy that Ciaran referenced at the top that allows them to remain nimble to shifting customer demands.
And look, I would say we call it test and repeat. It's test, repeat, and clear out. Right.
Got it.
Obviously, like everybody else, you're not hitting 100. And so for us, we will test styles every week. So each brand, and look, different at different sizes. So let's talk Princess Polly, our largest brand. They'll test maybe 100 new styles in a week, and we'll go 100 to 150 units deep on a particular style. They'll see how that style performs over a week, 2-week period. That's based on customer interaction, conversion, obviously, product views, sell through, all of that information. If it hits their success metrics, they will buy back into that product and, get it here as fast as we can. So you're putting product on planes to get it back in stock as quick as you can. And then, with that, they'll call it a first repeat. Instead of 150 units, they might buy 200, 300, depending on what they see.
Yeah.
And then they will continue with that process of buying and repeating back into what they see are winners, right? It takes time, but you build up effectively cohorts of winners over time that you're repeating into. And the biggest part of your business are those repeat SKUs that are somewhat evergreen, just working away there all the time.
Yeah.
You might find a style that you feel is a winner, that you see as a winner, that you've been buying into, repeating into, and you might start testing in different colorways. You might start testing in different patterns. So again, with that, you're testing, but you're somewhat testing things that you feel really high conviction that customers are responding positively to. Look, it's a model that I would say from an organization perspective takes time to build. It is quite different than others. We've also had to spend a lot of time finding vendors that can work in that model, right?
Yep.
Finding a supply chain that can work and give you 100 units to 1,000 to 10,000 at the quality you want and the price point you want. It's quite difficult to find them. But look, it's a model that when you get it working, it is just extremely powerful.
Yeah, and just reduces risk. I mean, I would imagine like in every part of the business, it reduces risk, inventory, everything, right?
Everything. No, look, I think with it, you do let a little bit of demand on the table.
Yeah.
Right? If you think of like, there's a great style, gosh, it's gone so well, I've sold out. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get back into it. So you let a little bit of demand on the table, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
But it's worth it. So Culture Kings, I saw that you have a flagship store in Las Vegas that has not only a 75-foot hat wall, a recording studio, and half a basketball court, which is crazy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Culture Kings, our streetwear brand on the men's side, just a phenomenal brand that we've brought into the US. Very successful brand in Australia. They've had a mix of stores and direct consumer there. We opened the store in Vegas, like you said, half basketball court. There's a hat wall, has 3,000 hats on it. Recording studio. We actually have a fully licensed bar.
Really?
Which I would tell you is very difficult to get.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get for a retail store, even in Vegas. There's actually a secret room there as well, where we've got a lot of one-of-one product.
Well, it's not a secret now.
I know. I like to share the secret.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the sales out of it. We're trying to bring that retail-tainment
Yeah.
to, that's core to what Culture Kings do, right? That's core to that customer. For us, we do that in the store. Look, it's a store. It's doing great from a sales perspective, from profit, but we also use it for marketing activations and content that we get out of there, we amplify online, right? And look, we've done super activations from last week. We had a big event with TikTok Live in there. We will do events for the Formula One Grand Prix in Vegas, where we have brought a McLaren car, the full Formula One car, into the store. We've had racing simulators in there, drivers come in there. We've done a lot with WrestleMania, with UFC, fighters coming in, working out in the store, meeting their audience. Some of them we'll do product collaborations with as well. So exclusive product you can get in the store just at Culture Kings. And really just look, I suppose, amplifying the brand, but also having fun for our customers. And kind of, we want to be not just great product, but also just a great place that they want to associate with.
Where is it? Just so people know, in Vegas.
Yeah, it's in the Caesars Forum stores in Vegas.
Oh my God. Like you couldn't ask for a better place. That's ridiculous.
It's just a great location. We've been really fortunate.
Yeah, it's super high volume. So that's great. Now to something a little more boring, but very important. You mentioned right off the bat, asset light. You have a lot of flexibility in the way you react to things. How'd you deal with all the tariff stuff and the volatility with consumers maybe retrenching in April because they were a little frightened of what was going to happen in different businesses? How did you manage all that and how does it affect you?
Yeah, look, I feel we've done a great job of managing through this uncertainty, and all credit to the team. I'm super fortunate with the team that we have across all these brands and just a huge amount of work they've done. When it came to the tariffs, we took a three-pronged approach. One was going back to existing vendors and working with them on some discounts, which we got and made some progress there. But certainly, look, when the tariffs got extremely elevated, that wasn't going to be enough. Probably since last November, we started working on diversifying our supply chain. We were predominantly in China. We've done a huge amount of work there to move product out of China, get new vendors up and running that can work in our model. So made huge progress there. And look, we also needed to take price and felt looking across the sector, there was an opportunity for us to take some pricing actions. We did that in May. Early days, don't feel there's been a hugely negative impact from a consumer perspective. I think we're very fortunate that pretty much across our brands, about 100% of the product is exclusive to us.
Yep.
Right. So there is an opportunity there. Obviously, Culture Kings will have some third-party product as well. You know, I think we're managing through it. It certainly had an impact for us on margins in Q2 and we'll have again in Q3, but we feel we'll be well beyond it by the end of Q3.
Yeah, makes sense. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was sustainability. What's your approach to kind of sustainability and eco-conscious materials? I know that's a trend that's been taking hold in the last 5 years in particular. What's your take on it?
We certainly feel it's important. You know, I would say particularly the Princess Polly brand has made big efforts there. And in their mission, they're very clear that they are looking to make on-trend fashion, accessible price point, and in a sustainable way.
Yep.
And I'd say within the group, they've led the efforts there. They just got certified as a B Corporation, which is great for them. You know, something they've been working on for a number of years. And, you know, that goes across their whole business and just really trying to make that positive impact in the fashion industry. They've done a lot with low impact materials and really pushing on that. Right now, they're at about 40% of their new arrivals are on low impact materials, and they're continuing to build that. And as they see winners in those new product that they'll be coming in, it'll obviously kind of just go into their repeat products that they have. So really happy with that progress. I think it's an area we're going to continue to push into and make good efforts there.
If you look out over the next 5 or 10 years, I have to think other brands might be a part of a.k.a. When you think about M&A in your space, how do you think about adding brands potentially, even if it's down the road? And what criteria do you think about when you're evaluating a target?
We certainly think about M&A, and I think there are interesting opportunities out there. For us, I think the bar is quite high now to join the group.
Yeah.
You know, we feel we've got 4 great brands that have a lot of opportunity. We're very focused on going after the opportunity with them. But look, I think, yeah, we continue to look at M&A. I think for us, very much want to be somewhat similar to the brands we have in that focused on that kind of on-trend, accessible price point. I would say as well, we spend a lot of time just thinking about the teams that are at these brands.
Yeah.
Are they willing to come into an organization where part of the benefit of this organization is we share everybody's numbers and metrics with everybody else?
Yep.
Right. So there's a huge amount of transparency across the group. There's a huge amount of learning and collaboration across the group. And that's what we want. We want people to kind of help each other, learn from each other. We don't want to be repeating the same mistakes across each brand. Right. And I think, You want groups and founders and people that want to work in an organization like that, want to collaborate like that. There's also a nice healthy competition across the brands and like who's doing best this week and why. That's a lot of what we think about. And obviously, look, the aspects of our model of test and repeat, influencer marketing, asset light are core as well as we look at opportunities that we evaluate.
Yeah. How are you evaluating the influencers? How do you find them? How do you go about that?
It's really interesting with the influencer program that you're able to measure on a daily basis the effectiveness of any one particular influencers and your group of influencers, which we do. And we have a team who've built their kind of tools in-house and systems in-house to measure influencer effectiveness, to constantly evaluate them. And if they're not on point for the brand, move on to the next one. And look, I think we're fortunate now that, with the business we've built, how we've leaned into influencers, we do have a really nice pipeline of people that want to work with us.
As you look out to the rest of 25 and into 26, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're most excited about where you're like, let's get on this, man. Let's make it work?
We've opened up the aperture a little bit over the last 18 months and taking the approach of let's be where our customers are. Stores, wholesale, and, scaling these brands in the US. I'm just super excited of the opportunity to continue to lean into that. We've learned a lot as we've done it. We're really strong learning organization and kind of taking those learnings and now applying, what we've learned at Princess Polly from a store perspective to the other brands, what we've learned at Petal & Pup from a wholesale to the other brands, and just really supercharging each one of these brands and getting after the opportunity we have here in the US.
That was Ciaran Long, CEO of a.k.a. Brands. They've got a great portfolio of growing brands that really have a lot of runway to grow globally. And they're executing within an operating model that's asset light and uses technology to take out a lot of the guesswork and risk that generally comes along with the fashion business. It'll be interesting to watch a.k.a. Brands continue to expand in the coming years and continue to meet their customer base wherever they are, both in terms of physical location and their different stages of life. I'm Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.